Hello and welcome to Butterfly Journeys Midlife Adventures, where we share real stories of travel, transformation and new beginnings. I'm your host, Joanna Filmer, and I want you to know that midlife is our time to step beyond expectations and to use travel or even relocation as a powerful tool for rediscovery and reinvention.
Hey, soul
Let's go.
sister, I heard you made another man cry, but don't worry, baby. I'll be by your
Good morning, Pascale. Welcome to the podcast. Where are you today? What's going
Good
on?
morning, Joanna. I'm in Philippines. I'm in a place called Port Barton on Palawan Island, and it's just beautiful. Yeah,
Good. How long have you been there for?
I just arrived in Port Barton 2 days ago, but I've been staying close to El Nido for a little above a month now.
Nice.
Yeah,
Okay. So would you recommend it to solo women in midlife to travel there?
absolutely. I mean, Philippines nature is just amazing. It's just really, really nice. You know, the islands, you can go island hopping and, you know, the water is beautiful and yeah, and the people are very nice too. Like and it surprised me how well they speak English here. Even when they speak to each other in Filipino, like they bring in English words. So
Right.
English
Okay.
language is really integrated, like compared to some other Asian countries. So I thought that was pretty
Yeah.
interesting too.
And you feel safe there? It feels quite safe to travel?
Absolutely. I just rode a scooter from El Nido area to Port Barton, which is about 5 hours, and like no problems at all. I mean, I walk back home at night.
Beautiful.
You know, here when I go out, it's very yeah. Maybe in the bigger cities, it's not the
Yeah.
same, but these are more like
Beautiful.
laid
It's on my
back
list.
touristy
Thank you. I like it. It's
places.
always good when you speak to someone who's in a place that you've heard about or you would like to go to. But then when you hear from someone who's there and they're saying, yeah, it's safe, it's like this, it kind of gives you
Yeah,
that positive feeling to actually go and give it a go. So
yeah.
let's go back to June 2018. You were over 50, you sold everything and you left. What was happening at that moment that you felt like that was it? You needed that change to go?
That's quite interesting because most people like they're going through, you know, a divorce or, you know, something kind of drastic is happening in their life for them to actually do it. But in my case, it was more like it was a call for something more, you know, and it was like I knew was a point where I felt like I needed to evolve and I couldn't evolve in my, you know, in my routine kind of thing. So it was more something like that. It was like I was not that I was bored, but you know, things were just normal. But at the same time, I have two boys, and my eldest one had already moved out. My youngest one was moving out. I was single, no pets. So it was the perfect time also. And I have a coaching business and I was doing in-person coaching, but organically the clients were kind of moving online because I was, you know, downtown. I was in Montreal and, you know, people that were a little bit outside didn't want to come in the traffic. So video calls were starting to be popular then. So it kind of all fell together if you want.
What was that decision then to actually, did you sell your house and decide that was it, you was off and going? And where did you get, because that's a huge move. That's a real brave move, I think, for many
Yes, it
people to
is.
do that. What actually got you
Yeah.
to that point to say, yeah, this is what I'm going to do?
Well, I was thinking, okay, do I keep the house and rent it? And then I started thinking, oh, you know, I don't want to get phone calls if something's going bad or like it was like a call for freedom also. It was like I had always had a passion for traveling anyway. I had had my first solo trip, you know, maybe 5 or 6 years before, and I had really enjoyed it. I had also been to Bali on a transformational coaching course, And I had always said that I was going to go back there and stay longer at some point. There was also that was that was calling me. So I figured I wanted to be totally free. So I sold the house and, the car, gave away things. And yeah, there was a detachment. It required some detachment of all the material things. But the hardest part was more like leaving behind my sons, even though they were adults and they have their own life, and my friends and my family. That was a bit more difficult, but I figured I'm not going forever, and I can come back. They can come visit me. Uh, yeah, that's kind of how it happened. Was it was a calling, and then it organically just came together.
What was the reaction of your family and friends around you when you said that this was what you was going to do?
Well, my eldest son said, "Don't you think that's a little crazy? You're selling everything and going to the other side of the planet in a cult?" So, because I was going to this resort in Bali, which was more like, you know, had a meditation hall and a yoga studio kind of thing. And so that was one reaction I got. And then I just, reassured him. I said, "Don't worry, your mother is not gone off her rocker. She's, her head is still screwed on right." Um, so, managed to get him to laugh, and he came around quite quickly. And yeah, and my youngest son thought that it was pretty cool. Otherwise, a lot of people were kind of saying, like, "Are you sure you want to do this? And what are you going to do when you're going to come back?" And, it was all, I was solid enough in my decision to kind of know that it was like projection. So they were projecting their fears onto me. Um, and so, yeah, I had done a lot of work on trying not to let other people's judgment affect me. So I was quite comfortable with my decision. Well, I guess you have to be in order to do such a thing. So it was a process getting there. But once I was kind of solid in my decision, I just, people saw that, "Oh, geez, she's so that was that. And a lot of people were really encouraging me and saying, "Well, that's so much fun, and you're so brave, and you're fearless." And said, "I'm not fearless, but I feel the fear, but I do it anyway."
Yeah, stepping into your fears allows for growth, personal growth.
Mm, mm.
So it's still brave. It's a brave step to make those changes. You talked a bit. I looked through some of your notes and what you talk about and where you're at this point here. Do you feel you talk about alignment and soul alignment? Do you think that was a feeling that was going on within you rather than being kind of your life being shaped by the expectations of society around you and what you should be doing? Was it something more deeper inside of you that took you on that decision to make that move to leave and travel?
Yeah, it was exactly that. It was like my soul was just, I just couldn't not, I could not listen to it. It was just like, you know, do it. Like, this is, and then look around. It's perfect timing for you. So it was truly like, a soul calling.
And it's listening to the signs. You talked that about that. Do you feel like there were anything, what can you remember anything around you that was kind of leading you? Because I do think sometimes something takes you somewhere, but it's sometimes there's those small signs, isn't there? It's recognizing those small signs and
Yeah,
honoring
well,
yourself and honoring your body.
one was like the clients asking to, "Oh, can we do video calls instead? There's too much traffic, and, hard to find parking, and blah, blah, blah." So, I mean, that was kind of also a sign, because I was thinking, I still have to continue working. And so, of course, um, there was the risk of losing clients. And that's, I mean, that's part of it. Every decision has some, so yeah, that was a sign. And what else? Well, just in terms of, going to Bali. So I was able to stay in that resort for a month, and there was a training going on that I really wanted to do, an inner dance facilitator training. So, which, I still facilitate today. So that was another thing that kind of happened. It happened just a few days. It was happening in the resort I was at just a few days after I was to arrive. And I actually bought a one-way ticket to Paris. I have friends and family there and in France. So it was like one-way ticket to Paris. And I didn't quite know exactly when I would go to the other places. But, I kind of went on a little, I went on visits. I went to Paris. I went to a friend's place in Lyon. Then I studied 1 year in Paris. I met an old friend from school that I hadn't seen in like, whatever, 30 years.
Beautiful.
Then I took the train to Switzerland and stayed with a friend there, and, eventually made my way to Bali.
Okay, so it was a bit of a journey. So when you actually let go of your home and stepped into this new life, what was the biggest fear that you had at that point, like kind of practically or emotionally or both?
Well, I guess my biggest fear was, will I be able to kind of sustain myself?
Yeah.
Also. So, financially, and then, maybe a bit like, will I not be lonely? Those kind of fears. I guess I'm not really one to worry much in general. I wasn't worried that, I wasn't going to be able to like find a place to stay or like about the practical things too much.
Mm.
But I found that actually talking about loneliness, I find when you travel alone, you meet so many people, especially if you're open to it. Um, and more than if you were, with someone else, because you kind of have the tendency to stay in your little bubble when you're with someone. Yes, you may share a bit with others, but especially as a woman solo traveler, you meet so many other solo traveler women. Like I just spent 3 months in Sicily with a friend that I met in Thailand like 4 years ago. And so we met in Thailand, and then we happened to be in India together and met up for a month and a half in India about 3 years ago, and then met again. In the next couple of weeks, I'm meeting a friend on another island, a lady I met in Mexico. We happened to cross paths in Marrakesh. Like one day we had dinner together, and then in Bali last year. So, you develop a network of international friends that, you can meet up with also.
Oh,
So not
yeah,
only
it's
when
a
you're now I'm alone, but I actually enjoy more and more my own company. So whether it's, and when I want connection, then I'll join a group for a tour, or I'll go to a yoga class, or just eating in a restaurant, or having a coffee, which I'm not drinking anymore, but having a tea or something. Someone will start talking to you, and you can
you don't
have
feel
really.
lonely.
No, not at all. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess sometimes there can be those moments, but they pass quite quickly because, as you say, you're either talking to locals about life, or you're meeting other people, travelers, other types of people that you connect
Mm-mm.
with, other women that are traveling and that, or men. There's so many people to engage with because there's so many people doing different things as you travel around that you connect to them. Um,
Yeah.
You've been traveling now, we're into 2026, so that's almost 7 years. What's been something, is there been any particular moment during the journey where you felt something like fundamentally change inside of you?
Yeah, I have 10 really transformative stories that I talk about in my book, She Travels. So the book is about stories of transformation. So the first half are 10 of my own stories, and then the second half is 10 women telling their own stories. And so it's really a combination of like I had one incident in Sardinia where I got everything stolen, literally. So I had just checked out of an Airbnb, and I happened to be with a friend from Rome that had come down to visit. And so we had rented a car and, packed up the car, and we were on our way out, and we decided to stop at the beach and then came back to the car, and the car was totally empty. So all I had was my phone and um, a, bathing suit, pair of shorts and a t-shirt. And yeah, that was, that was not something planned but it was very transformative, because it just brought back a bunch of childhood wounds that had not been quite resolved yet. And so it just brought back things to the surface, and it really helped me to heal them. So it was not a fun incident, and it took me some time to get over that. I ended up, after my friend left, going to a meditation center and just um you know totally whatever, healing that thing. So that was quite interesting. So it just gives you the strength that no matter what happens, like, it'll either pass or everything will be okay. And that there's also angels on our path. Like, I couldn't even receive money because Western Union, because all my cards had been stolen, my computer, and I even had crypto. And so all of that disappeared. And so I tried to get money at Western Union. Western Union wanted my passport, and I didn't have my passport. My passport didn't have my passport either. So I had no ID. And yeah, I said, "What won't a picture do?" Because I had a picture in my phone. And no, we need the original. So anyway, the lady where I was staying in the Airbnb, she came, and so I had my son send money directly to her, and then she gave me the money. And then she, took me around to get my picture taken for the passport. And I ended up finding that meditation center, which was just a beautiful place. And, I slowly came out of that. But that was probably the hardest thing that happened.
Did that impact you on any way in which you consider yourself to be safe? How did it impact you in that way? Because that psychologically, I'm thinking, that would impact how you
Well,
feel safe, or how you travel, and what it means to travel, and what you need to do with your stuff, and the stuff that we acquire, and the importance we attach to it. So many things in there.
actually, this whole 8 years has really strengthened my inner safety, because,
Mm.
it's all about how safe you feel inside. And I mean, that could have happened anywhere. And, people were actually surprised, because Sardinia is really a very quiet island. But it's like, yeah, that could happen anywhere. And I've had so many other incidents where, when I was in hard situations, there was always kind of someone or a solution or something that happened. So it actually, you might find it funny, but it actually kind of strength, like, even if that happens to me, even if I have nothing in the world, I'm still standing. I'm still alive. And I mean, beautiful. And so it's like, yeah, I could live and not have anything.
Mm. Well, that's interesting because you talked there about that inner sense of kind of safety. Um, so the question, I guess, it's making me thinking of now. So, how does that relate to your idea of home as well? Because you're talking about the inner self. Does home come into that anymore? Is there a place that's home? Is home within you? How do you see that now?
Yeah. I see like home is here, home is in my heart. So,
Yeah.
I feel at home pretty much anywhere. I mean, I struggle a little bit at the beginning of the year because I had to leave Sicily and I went to Tunisia and it was cold. I was expecting it to be warmer, and it took me a while to, so I have periods where I'm thinking, oh, can I find a place where I'm going to feel comfortable? But most of the time it's just, yeah, like every place almost feels like home now because
Because you
yeah, I feel like home here now because you have no choice but to face yourself, when you travel solo.
Mm.
So, being with yourself, being inside of yourself. I'm a big meditator also, so I mean that really helps. Yeah.
Do you have like
So
daily
I
rituals that you do? What would they be, just to share with people that listen? Because I'm a big one in having those morning rituals or evening rituals, whatever they are.
yeah. Um well, I meditate first thing in the morning, so it varies, but between 40 minutes and an hour. So it's a long meditation. And then I either do yoga or I go to the gym or I go for a walk on the beach. I go for a run. So I always do like meditation and then do the more kind of physical activity and things. And one thing I do also before I do the meditation is I have a glass of water with lemon juice. So big glass of water with lemon juice. So that's and yeah, I really also watch what I eat because when you travel a lot, like it's very tempting to taste everything everywhere. Um, and and I still do really kind of take advantage of the like the different um what do you call that? The different meals in different places, but I I don't do it as much anymore, and I really watch what I eat, and that also helps. It helps with the energy. It helps with, yeah, the stability also.
Yeah, yeah. All these
Yeah.
routines that actually bring home with you, like you say, wherever you are, home's with you because you've got those little routines that you put into place every day. What surprised you most about yourself once you kind of started this journey and you left everything and you went out? What do you think has been the most surprising thing to you?
This is, I don't know what's coming up for me now is that it it um it really mirrored to me my impatience.
Mm.
And so, you know how in the Western world we're used to kind of having things happen quickly, and Wi-Fi works well, and blah blah blah. And so I've really had to work on my patience, um, because every country has their rhythm, and you really need to respect it and like flow into it. Um, that's probably the biggest thing. I mean, one of the biggest things that I learned about myself was how impatient I was, but how I'm getting more and more patient. Yeah, also how adaptable I actually am. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
that's the beauty of travel. You have to adapt, and
oh,
it's amazing how quickly you adapt as well. Especially when
yes,
you jump from culture to culture, country to country, you become much more adept at it, don't you think?
yes, yes. So the more you do it, like it takes just, it used to take me maybe 3 days to get used to a place. Now it's a couple of hours almost.
Yeah, you just jump straight in. So do you think there's something powerful about being in our 50s? What, we talk about it, you talk about it in your book. It's one of my things that I believe. What do you think is so powerful about this space in our 50s and this kind of like personal awakening that many of us seem to go through?
Yeah. Well, I think the fact that half our, there's only half our life left. We want to take, really full advantage of it. For me anyway, I'm just thinking, so, and also, you have the experience behind you, um, the wisdom and the experience and all of that behind you. And well, for me, I don't really care anymore what people think. And so,
Mhm.
the older I get, the less I care. And so the more I'm able to do the things that, that my soul really um, wants to be doing. Yeah.
Yeah. You can
Yeah.
grow into yourself. It's such a powerful decade or era in our chapter in our life. It's
Yeah.
something really to embrace and to take the most of it because, like you just said there, the clock is ticking. I'm so aware of that because you start to see people passing away or you have family that are unwell, and it just makes you, it
Mhm.
really brings home to you that it's a short ride and to make the most of it every day. So you've gone through lots of, you talked about your 10 chapters that you wrote about of transformation. So a lot of personal transformation in there for you. How have you turned that into guiding other women through theirs? Because I know that that's now a part of your practice as well and your work.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, I offer two types of travel coaching if you want. One is transformative solo travel. So for women that just want to experience one solo trip. So it has, date of departure, date of return. And it's basically with a lot of the fears and that are holding them back. So, I mean, you really want to do it, but then there's all the fears that are in the way. Like we discussed, it's lonely or it's unsafe or I'm too old. That's another thing with, the 50
Yeah.
plus is,
Yeah.
well, I'm too old for that, etc. Or, it requires too much planning. So all of those fears or limitations that I work with. And then, of course, the planning. And then I actually am available to them, or we have a call when they're actually on the trip, and then also when they come home to integrate the transformation. Of course, part of it too is creating the intention for the transformation. So this is not just someone that wants to go for a sightseeing trip somewhere. It really has the intention of transformation. And I also offer if someone wants to adopt a nomadic lifestyle, whether it's a digital nomad, like taking their actual work with them, or whether it's someone that's retiring or close to retiring that wants to adopt that kind of lifestyle. So that's a more kind of life decision um, coaching, and of course all that entails, and the practicalities are a little more in depth in that yeah. So I think having been through it myself, well, I have a coach background and a coach training, but having lived it myself, both the solo travel and the nomadic lifestyle, I've met a lot of situations that you know some women are bound to meet, and therefore helping them kind of pull through them and come out with the actual benefit or the actual, I don't like to say lesson, but the learning from it, because every
Yeah. It's
every experience has a gift. Like even that experience that happened to me had a great gift. Um, and there's another thing too, is that I also help them choose the place, because there's our intention of transformation, but the place has a lot to do with it. Places have energy, and sacred sites have energy, and they will catalyze the transformation. For example, Egypt has a very strong energy. I don't know if you've been there.
Not into Egypt, but
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. For Morocco, I think was very powerful for me. India is very
Yes.
powerful for me. There's that
Yes. Yeah.
strong, there's just a strong energy when you arrive, you can feel it.
Yeah. And so, you know, f- I have one or two chapters on Egypt in the book, and so um, a lot of the transformation had to do with the energy of the goddesses, um, and what transformations that they brought to me. So yes, the places have also a role to play in the transformation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
And
really
then there's
important rather.
there's also a lot of modalities that are done, like inner dance was something that actually was born here in the Philippines. Um, and so this is a process where it's a multisensory process where people go through an inner voyage. So there's a playlist created by a shamanic DJ that stimulates different states of consciousness, and people go on an inner voyage. So anything can happen. Some people fall asleep. Some people totally relax, but some people, have emotional release. Some people will have visions. Some people will, you know, really see themselves in a different light and come out of it like um, changed, transformed. And so, this is something I took the training in Bali, and I've brought it back to Montreal also, and facilitated some sessions there. So um there are I also went to Vipassana meditation in Bali. So there are Vipassana meditations a little bit everywhere in the world, but in this particular area, um something really profound happened. And I'm sure that it was the energy of that specific lieu that that was part of it, because it's never all of it, but it was part of it. Yeah.
There's definitely a magical energy in Bali. Definitely have
Hmm.
felt it there. Something quite powerful there. That's really interesting. I'll have to look a bit into that because I don't know too much about that inner dance therapy. So that's something for me to have a little look. You've been gathering, so you had the book that you've published, She Travels,
I have it
and you
right.
gathered up these. You have a copy there? Yeah,
Yeah. Can, can,
perfect.
can
Wonderful.
can you see it?
Go
So
read it.
this was
Anyone that's
taken
listening, go read
actually
it.
at Isis's temple. Hmm.
Ah. Okay, perfect. So the links will be below for anyone that's listening. We'll give the links to
Mhm.
the book as well. So when you were gathering the stories for She Travels, what common thread did you see in how solo travel transforms? Did you see like kind of threads? There may have been a few, maybe, but what did you see that stuck
Yeah.
out?
One is self discovery for sure.
Mm,
Um, Also this um, more confidence, more trust. And
mm,
there was also this silver thread about surrendering, how important it is to surrender to what is. And that was woven through most of my stories, and also through a lot of the women's stories. And the beautiful thing about that is that I didn't really seek out any specific stories. But it came together so well, because not one story is in the same place, maybe a couple, but most of them are not in the same place. The story of transformation is just totally different for each person, and the style of writing is different. And so it just came together beautifully with the other women's stories. So that was I was very happy with that.
what a Yeah, what a beautiful project. I love that. So, for the woman that's listening, who's still kind of like, they're feeling that kind of like, yeah, I think this is maybe what I want to do. I want to change up and I want to travel, but they're kind of just stuck and they really don't, then maybe it's wherever they're at. What would you say to that woman?
I would say go for it. And at least, take that first step, because often when we look at the big project, it seems like, it's overwhelming. But if you just take one step, and the step could be, just go online and start looking at the places, or, just put at least your big toe into it in that direction. And then just jump. Life is too short. You're never too old. Like, there are some women in their 80s and 90s, and especially if you're healthy, it's what one of the biggest regrets of the dying is not traveling enough, like not seeing the world enough, and worrying too much about what other people think. So if that's in your way, don't worry about what there's one person. I don't know if you're hearing the dogs in the background.
I can hear you, but I can hear the dogs too. I've got the parrots outside.
So this is life as a nomad. Yes, if there's one person that you have to live with for the rest of your life, is yourself. And so that's the most important person to take care of.
Yeah, listen to yourself. That's really excellent advice. Pascale, thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed
this conversation. Thank you so much for having me, Joanna.
I'm so grateful.
I could go on for hours.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we finish? Is there something that we've missed through the discussion?
Maybe I can just end by saying, to travel outwards is to travel inwards. And
absolutely
that's the beauty of it.
What a fundamental truth that is. Thank you. That's the perfect way to end this conversation. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your trip in the Philippines.
Okay. Thank you, Joanna. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Butterfly Journeys Midlife Adventures with me, Joanna. Until next time, may you keep awakening, emerging, and evolving on your own midlife butterfly journey. Follow the podcast, hit subscribe, and share it with your fellow midlife butterflies. And if you have a story to share, reach out. My emails and DMs are in the show notes. I would love to hear from you. Your journey could inspire another woman.